The air in the grand ballroom was thick with perfume and tension, and every eye in the room was locked on me. The envelope hit my chest with a force that made me stumble, then fell to the marble floor with a sound that echoed louder than the string quartet had just stopped playing. My husband, Nolan, stood 3 feet away, his arm draped around a woman I'd seen only twice before, both times with a smile that made my stomach twist. "Divorce papers, Leora," Nolan announced, his voice carrying across the silent room. "I'm done pretending we have a marriage worth saving." The woman beside him, Harper, held up her phone. The small red light in the corner told me everything I needed to know. She was recording this, recording my humiliation for whatever social media platform would give her the most attention. I bent down slowly, picked up the envelope, and met Nolan's eyes. 8 years of marriage, and I barely recognized the man in front of me. His navy suit was new, so were his shoes. The watch on his wrist cost more than our monthly mortgage payment, and I knew for certain I hadn't bought it for him. "You're doing this here?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "At a charity event?" "Leora, Harper and I believe in living authentically," Nolan said, pulling her closer. She leaned into his touch, flipping her hair for the camera. "We're not going to hide our love just because it makes you uncomfortable. Besides, everyone here needs to know the truth. You've been holding me back for years." Harper finally spoke, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. "Nolan deserves someone who matches his ambition. Someone who understands success." She gestured to herself with a manicured hand. "I own 3 businesses and an investment portfolio that would make your head spin." My best friend Tamara appeared at my elbow, her hand gripping my arm. "We're leaving," she whispered urgently. But I couldn't move. I stood there looking at Nolan, remembering the man who'd promised to love me through everything, and tried to find him in this stranger's face. The ballroom buzzed with whispers growing louder by the second. Camera phones appeared throughout the crowd. By tomorrow morning this moment would be everywhere. "Nothing to say, Leora?" Nolan taunted. "That's typical. You never had vision, you never wanted more than your little comfortable life." Harper showed me what I was missing. Real success, real partnership, real passion. He continued, counting on his fingers like I was a child who needed help understanding. "I'm filing for half of everything, the house, your car, your savings, that small inheritance you got. You can keep your job at the community center since it barely pays anything. Harper and I are building an empire, and I need capital to invest." Harper laughed high and bright. "We're going to be so happy, babe, without dead weight dragging us down." The crowd gasped. Even for this spectacle, that comment crossed a line. But I saw what Nolan couldn't. I saw how Harper's eyes calculated everything. How she assessed the ballroom, the guests, the potential social media engagement this video would get. She wasn't in love with Nolan. She loved what she thought he could give her. "Are you finished?" I asked quietly. Nolan blinked, apparently surprised I wasn't crying or begging. "Yeah, my lawyer will contact you tomorrow. Don't try to fight, Leora. You'll lose." I tucked the envelope under my arm and straightened my green dress. My mother raised me to keep my dignity no matter what. And I wouldn't let Nolan take that from me, too. "Then I guess we're done here." Tamara and I walked toward the exit, my heels clicking against marble with each measured step. Behind us, the crowd erupted in conversation. Ahead, the double door seemed miles away. My face felt hot, my hands cold, and somewhere deep in my chest, something that felt like my heart was cracking into pieces. But I kept walking. Head high, shoulders back, exactly like my grandmother taught me. If Nolan wanted a show, he'd gotten one. Just not the ending he expected. The night air hit my face as we stepped outside, and I finally let myself breathe. Tamara guided me toward her car, speaking in low, comforting tones I couldn't quite process. My phone buzzed constantly in my clutch. Messages, probably people who'd witnessed the disaster, offering sympathy or asking questions. I ignored all of it and stared at the envelope in my hands. Tomorrow I'd open it. Tomorrow I'd read whatever lies Nolan's lawyer had written. Tomorrow I'd start the process of legally ending my marriage. Tonight I just needed to survive the falling apart. Sunlight streamed through my bedroom window, bright and merciless. I'd barely slept, spending most of the night staring at the ceiling while my mind replayed Nolan's words on an endless loop. The envelope sat on my nightstand, still unopened. Looking at it made my chest tight. My phone showed 47 missed calls and over 100 text messages. Tamara had stayed until midnight making sure I ate something and didn't do anything rash like call Nolan and scream at him. Not that I'd wanted to. The shock had worn off somewhere around 3 o'clock in the morning, replaced by something colder and sharper. Anger. One name stood out. Elijah Grant, my business attorney. His message was simple. Saw what happened. Call me when you're ready. I pressed the dial before I could change my mind. Leora, Elijah answered on the first ring. His deep voice calm and professional. How are you holding up? I've been better. I sat up, pulling my knees to my chest. I need you to look at something. The divorce papers. How did you know? It's all over social media, Elijah said gently. That woman posted the video. It's gotten about 200,000 views already. My stomach dropped. Of course she had. Harper was probably counting her new followers right now. Thrilled with the engagement. Can you come over? I need legal advice, and I don't want to do this over the phone. Give me an hour. I showered and dressed in comfortable jeans and a blue sweater, pulling my natural hair into a high puff. My reflection looked tired but determined. I needed to be determined right now. Falling apart could come later. Tamara arrived first carrying bags from my favorite breakfast place. You need to eat, she announced, unpacking containers of eggs, fruit, and fresh juice. And then we're going to figure this out. Elijah's coming over, I told her, sitting at my kitchen table. Nolan wants half of everything. That man has lost his mind. Tamara's hands moved expressively as she talked, her passion making me smile despite everything. He throws divorce papers at you in public, humiliates you on purpose, and then expects you to just hand over your stuff. Absolutely not. The doorbell rang precisely an hour after my call. Elijah stood on my porch in casual slacks and a crisp red shirt, his leather briefcase in one hand. At 6 feet 2 inches with rich brown skin and intelligent eyes, he'd always been handsome. But right now, I only cared about his legal expertise. Thank you for coming, I said, letting him inside. Elijah nodded at Tamara, then settled into my living room chair. Let's see what we're dealing with. I handed him the envelope. He pulled out the papers and started reading, his expression neutral. Tamara sat beside me on the couch, her presence comforting. Minutes passed in silence while Elijah reviewed each page. Finally, he looked up. This is aggressive. Nolan is asking for half the house, half your savings, half your retirement account, and half the value of your car. He's also requesting spousal support. Spousal support? Tamara nearly shouted. He makes more money than Leora does. That's what it says. Elijah flipped to another page. His petition claims you held him back financially and emotionally. He's arguing that your lack of ambition prevented him from reaching his full potential. And now he needs support to establish himself properly. I laughed, but it sounded bitter even to my own ears. That's ridiculous. I work full-time at the community center coordinating programs. Nolan is a real estate agent who makes decent commissions. About that, Elijah said carefully, I'm going to need full financial disclosure from both of you. Bank statements, investment accounts, property titles, everything. If Nolan wants to play hardball, we need to be prepared. My heart started beating faster. This was the moment. The secret I kept for 6 years. The one Nolan never bothered to discover because he never paid attention to what I did with my time. Elijah, there's something you need to know. He leaned forward, his full attention on me. The properties, I said quietly. The ones I've been buying and flipping under my maiden name. Nolan doesn't know about them. Elijah's eyes widened slightly. How many properties are we talking about? 12. Well, 11 now. I sold one last month. I stood and walked to my home office, returning with a folder I'd kept locked in my desk. I kept everything separate. Used my inheritance from Grandma Rose as seed money. Reinvested all the profits. Nolan thought I was just doing a hobby. Messing around with real estate classes and renovation projects. Tamara stared at me. Leora Sterling, are you telling me you've been secretly building a real estate portfolio this entire time? Not secretly, just privately. I handed the folder to Elijah. Nolan never asked details. When I talked about properties, he'd tune out or make jokes about my little projects. He had no idea how much they were worth. Elijah opened the folder and began examining documents. His eyebrows rose higher with each page. Leora, some of these properties are in premium locations. This penthouse downtown, this building in the Arts District. What's the total value here? Around $4 million, give or take. The portfolio generates about $30,000 a month in rental income. More when I flip something. The silence in my living room was absolute. Tamara's mouth hung open. Elijah looked at me with new respect. His professional mask slipping for just a moment. Nolan has no idea, Elijah said slowly. None. And he wants half of your community center salary and your 10-year-old car. That's what the papers say. Elijah started laughing. It started as a chuckle and built into genuine amusement. Leora, this is the best news I've heard all week. Nolan just made a massive mistake. 6 years earlier, I sat in Grandma Rose's lawyer's office holding a check for $300,000. The inheritance shocked me. I knew she'd been careful with money, but I had no idea she'd saved so much. Your grandmother wanted you to have freedom, the lawyer explained. She specified in her will that this money was yours alone, not marital property. She wanted you to build something for yourself. I remembered that conversation as Elijah spread my property documents across my coffee table. Nolan had been at a real estate conference that weekend, the same conference where he probably first met Harper, though I didn't know it then. He came home and barely asked about the lawyer meeting. Just assumed I'd gotten some sentimental jewelry. Tell me how this started, Elijah said, his pen poised over his legal pad. I took a real estate investing class at the community college. I began settling into the memory just for fun, or so I thought. But the instructor talked about building wealth through property and something clicked. I started researching, learning everything I could about property values, renovation costs, rental markets. Tamara shook her head in amazement. I remember you spending every evening on your laptop. Nolan used to complain that you were ignoring him. He was usually watching sports or out with clients. I said he didn't actually want my attention. He just didn't like that mine was elsewhere. My first property was a small duplex in an up-and-coming neighborhood. The seller needed a quick cash buyer, and I offered an asking price with a 30-day close. Nolan noticed the money leaving our account only once. What's this $20,000 withdrawal? He'd asked, frowning at our bank statement. Investment, I'd said simply. In what? A property project. Don't worry, it's separate from our regular savings. He'd shrugged and gone back to his phone. That was the extent of his curiosity. In Nolan's mind, his career was important and mine was a cute hobby. He never bothered to ask follow-up questions about my projects or attend any of my property viewings. When I talked about renovations or rental agreements, his eyes glazed over, so I stopped mentioning it. I kept my maiden name, Sterling, on all property documents. Legally, Leora Sterling owned these assets, not Leora Patterson. I consulted with a lawyer early on to make sure everything was properly structured. The inheritance money was separate property by law, and any assets purchased with it remained separate as long as I didn't commingle funds. I never did. Every dollar from my property ventures went into a separate bank account Nolan didn't know existed. Every profit, every rental payment, every successful flip. I reinvested most of it, buying more properties, renovating smarter, building something real. This brownstone, Elijah said, pointing to one document. You bought this for $200,000 and it's now worth $800,000. The neighborhood changed fast, I explained. I saw the potential early. Bought it, did a full renovation, divided it into 4 luxury apartments. The rental income alone pays for 2 other mortgages. And Nolan never noticed you disappearing to manage properties? Tamara asked. I told him I was volunteering extra hours at the community center or meeting you for dinner. He never checked. I felt a pang of something that wasn't quite sadness. Honestly, I think he was relieved when I was gone. Gave him more time with his phone and his mysterious late-night client meetings. Those meetings were probably with Harper, Tamara said. Probably, I agreed. But that's his loss, not mine. Elijah made notes rapidly. This separation of assets is going to be key. Nolan's petition assumes all your wealth is tied up in the house you share, and your modest salary. He has no idea you're worth millions. What happens when he finds out? That depends on his lawyer, Elijah said. Discovery will require you to disclose all assets. When they see the full picture, they'll realize Nolan is entitled to exactly nothing from your portfolio. Will he try to claim part of it anyway? He can try, but the law is clear. Separate property remains separate unless you intentionally mixed marital and separate funds, which you didn't. Your grandmother's inheritance and everything you built from it belongs entirely to you. The house, your car, your regular savings, that's all he can touch. Even that's not automatic. We'll argue that since Nolan earns more than you do, he doesn't need spousal support. The house can be sold and proceeds divided, or you can buy him out. The car is old enough that its value is minimal. Your regular savings are modest. Nolan is walking away with very little. Tamara let out a whoop of joy. That woman Harper thinks she's getting a rich man. Wait until she finds out Nolan is broke. Actually, Elijah said, flipping through his notes, I'm going to recommend we investigate Nolan's finances too. If he's been spending marital funds on his girlfriend, that's a problem. We can argue he's been dissipating assets, which means he owes you money. I thought about Nolan's new watch, his new clothes, the expensive restaurants he'd supposedly been taking clients to. Harper's smug face as she filmed my humiliation. Do it. Find everything. I'll need access to your joint accounts, credit card statements, anything with both your names. I'll get you everything tonight. Elijah packed up his papers and stood. Leora, I'm going to be honest with you. This case is going to get ugly. Nolan embarrasses you publicly, and when he realizes he's not getting what he wants, he'll get nasty. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the last 8 years. How I'd made myself smaller to make Nolan feel bigger. How I'd celebrated his successes while he dismissed mine. How I'd built an empire in secret because my own husband couldn't be bothered to pay attention to my dreams. I'm ready, I said firmly. Nolan wanted a divorce. He's going to get one. Just not the way he planned. 3 days after the gala, Nolan's lawyer sent a formal letter to Elijah's office. I sat across from Elijah's desk while he read it aloud, his voice tight with controlled anger. Your client is being unreasonable and vindictive, Elijah quoted. Our client has been more than fair in his initial petition. However, given Mrs. Patterson's refusal to communicate, we are revising our demands. Revising up, I assume, I said dryly. Way up, Elijah scanned the page. Nolan now wants 60% of the house value, claiming he contributed more to the mortgage. He wants your car despite its age. Says he needs reliable transportation. He's requesting 70% of your savings and retirement accounts. And he's added a demand for $10,000 a month in temporary spousal support during the divorce proceedings. That's more than I make in a month. I'm aware. Elijah set the letter down. He's trying to force you into a bad settlement. Make you so financially desperate that you'll agree to anything just to end it. My phone buzzed with a text message. Tamara's name flashed on the screen along with a link. You need to see this. I clicked the link and found myself on Harper's social media page. Her follower count had tripled since the gala video. The most recent post showed her and Nolan standing in front of a luxury car dealership, both holding champagne glasses. The caption read, "New beginnings with my true love. #Mistress to wife." My blood boiled. Tamara read over my shoulder. She thinks she's already won. She doesn't know what's coming, I said quietly. I stared at the screen, the image of Nolan and Harper grinning beside a flashy car burning into my memory. Their joy was built on my pain, and that made my resolve harden like steel. Tamara put a hand on my shoulder. Don't let her get inside your head, Leora. You know what you've built. You know who you are. I took a deep breath. You're right. I won't give her the satisfaction. Elijah leaned forward, his expression serious. This social media post is evidence. If Nolan is spending marital funds on Harper, we can use it to prove dissipation. Any public display of wealth funded by your shared accounts could be grounds for him to repay you. I'll subpoena his financial records and credit card statements. Every dollar spent on her, every dinner, every trip, every purchase he made while cheating. Those are marital assets and you have a right to half. A slow smile spread across my face. He's going to pay for every second of his betrayal. Tamara laughed. He thought divorcing you would make him free, but he just walked into a financial trap. Elijah nodded. And don't forget, your property portfolio is protected. As long as you don't commingle funds, none of that is at risk. The only things that are vulnerable are the shared assets, and even those will fight for a fair division. If Nolan wants to play hardball, we'll play harder. I felt a surge of adrenaline. For years, I'd let Nolan believe he was in control, that he was the one with ambition and drive. But now the tables were turning. I had the upper hand and I wasn't going to waste it. I want every penny he owes me, I said. I want every asset he's hidden or tried to spend on her. And I want to see his face when he realizes he's lost everything. Elijah smiled. That's the spirit. But be prepared for pushback. Nolan is going to try to paint you as the villain, the greedy wife holding him back. He'll try to twist the story to make people feel sorry for him. Are you ready for that? I'm ready, I said. He's already humiliated me in public. There's nothing worse he can do. But now it's my turn to expose the truth. Let the world see who he really is. Tamara grinned. And let the world see who you really are. The woman who built an empire while he was chasing his own ego. Elijah left with a promise to move quickly on the financial investigation. As soon as the door closed, I turned to Tamara. We need a plan. I don't want to wait for the legal system to move at its own pace. I want to hit back now. What do you have in mind? Tamara asked. I want to release my own statement. Not just to defend myself, but to tell my story. Let everyone know that I wasn't just the wife he left behind. I'm Leora Sterling, the woman who quietly built something real while he was busy pretending. Tamara's eyes lit up. You're going viral. People love a comeback story. Let's write it together. We spent the next few hours drafting my response. I poured my heart into every word, describing my journey, my dreams, the secret projects I'd nurtured, and the strength I found in my darkest moments. I didn't attack Nolan or Harper directly. Instead, I focused on my own resilience, my determination, and my refusal to be defined by their betrayal. As I typed the final words, I felt a wave of empowerment. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for permission or approval. I was taking control. I uploaded the post to my social media, hit publish, and watched as the notifications started pouring in. Within minutes, my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from friends, acquaintances, even strangers flooded in. Some offered support, others curiosity, but most were inspired by my honesty and courage. "You're a queen," one woman wrote. "Don't let anyone take your power." Tamara grinned. "You're trending, girl. Look at the hashtags." I scrolled through the comments, reading story after story of women who'd been through similar situations. They saw themselves in my words, and that gave me even more strength. This wasn't just about my fight. It was about giving others hope. The next morning, I woke to a barrage of media requests. Journalists wanted interviews, talk shows invited me as a guest, and even my local news station called for a feature. I chose a few carefully, focusing on platforms where I could share my message to the widest audience. When I sat down for my first interview, I looked straight into the camera. I'm not here to play the victim. I'm here to show what's possible when you refuse to give up. No matter what life throws at you, you can rebuild. You can rise. And sometimes the greatest strength comes from the silence, the quiet moments when you decide to fight for yourself, even when no one is watching. The response was overwhelming. My story resonated with thousands, and I felt a sense of purpose I hadn't known in years. But I knew the battle wasn't over. Nolan would try to retaliate, Harper would try to spin the narrative, and the legal system would drag on. But I was ready. That night, I sat at my desk, staring at the folder of property documents Elijah had reviewed. My portfolio was safe, my future secure. But I wanted more than just financial victory. I wanted justice. I wanted Nolan and Harper to understand that their actions had consequences. I reached for my phone and sent a message to Elijah. I want to push forward with the lawsuit. I want to expose everything. I want Nolan to lose more than just money. I want him to lose his reputation, his pride, and his false sense of superiority. Elijah replied almost immediately. "Consider it done. We'll start preparing for court. But be prepared. This is going to be a long road. And it's going to get messy." "I'm ready," I said. "Let the world see what happens when you mess with a woman who knows her worth." The days that followed blurred together in a whirl of paperwork, meetings, and media interviews. Elijah's legal team worked tirelessly, gathering every shred of evidence that could bolster my case. Every credit card statement, every bank transfer, every luxury purchase Nolan had made appeared under the spotlight. The bigger picture started to emerge. Nolan hadn't just spent money on Harper. He drained our joint accounts, taken out loans, and even mortgaged our home without my knowledge. The ice in my veins melted into a slow, swelling fire. He'd tried to strip me of everything, but he'd left behind a trail of his own mistakes. I sat across from Elijah in his office, listening as he laid out the facts. "Nolan has been treating your joint accounts like his personal piggy bank. He's committed fraud, dissipation of assets, and possibly even perjury by hiding assets from you and the court." I nodded slowly, my hands clenched into fists. He thought he could walk away clean, but he's left a trail of wreckage. I want every penny he's taken, and I want every wrongdoing exposed. Elijah scratched his chin. "That's the direction we're going. But be prepared, it's going to be ugly. Nolan has a reputation to protect, and so does Harper. They'll fight back hard." "I'm not afraid anymore," I said. "I've spent years letting fear and silence rule me. This time, I'll let the truth do the talking." Elijah's eyes met mine. "Then we're ready. We'll file for full disclosure, initiate asset recovery, and subpoena every transaction from the last 5 years. If Nolan wants to play this game, we'll make sure he's held accountable. Back home, I pored over the detailed financial statements Elijah sent. Each line of red numbers painted a troubling picture. The luxury car he'd bought for Harper, the extravagant vacations, the designer clothes, the jewelry, and the new apartment he gave her under a pseudonym. My heart pounded as I flipped page after page, my anger giving way to a cold, calculated resolve. He'd taken everything he thought he could get away with, but he hadn't counted on my determination. Tamara came over that evening, her eyes wide with outrage as she saw the figures. He's a snake, Leora. He used your money to build a life with another woman, while you worked your fingers to the bone at the community center. That's exactly right, I murmured. He wanted everyone to see me as the simple, unambitious wife who held him back. But I was the one building something real, while he was playing house with Harper and pretending to be the successful man. Tamara wrapped her arm around my shoulder. Now it's your turn to shine. Let the world know the real you, and let the truth expose his lies. The next morning, I recorded another video for my social media. The background was simple, just my living room. But my words carried the weight of everything I'd endured. People keep asking me if I'm okay. I'm not okay. I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm exhausted. But I'm also strong. I'm resilient. I've learned that sometimes the darkest moments show us our true strength. Nolan and Harper thought they could ruin me, but they're about to find out I'm not just a victim. I'm a woman who's fought for everything I have, and I'm not going to let them take it away. The responses poured in, some supportive, some critical, but all of them contributed to a growing buzz. The hashtag #KnowYourWorth started trending, and women all over the world shared their stories of resilience. I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for every woman who'd ever been underestimated, silenced, or betrayed. Elijah called me midday, excitement in his voice. Leora, the court has granted full disclosure. Nolan is required to reveal every asset, every transaction, every loan, and every hiding place. They have 48 hours to submit everything. If they don't, they face legal consequences. I felt a surge of adrenaline. Good. Let's dig deeper. I want every scandal, every lie, every betrayal exposed. No secrets, no lies, no more games. Understood, Elijah said. I'll send in my requests for emergency subpoenas. We'll be ready for court as soon as possible. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with the possibilities, the courtroom scenes, the confrontations, the victories, and the setbacks. I thought about all the years I'd spent believing I wasn't enough, not ambitious enough, not assertive enough. For the first time, I realized I'd been wrong. I was more than enough. I was powerful, resourceful, and determined. I was Leora Sterling. Morning light found me at my desk, finalizing my statement for court. The words fell naturally, not just for Elijah, but for myself, for my future, and for every woman who'd ever felt powerless. I wrote honestly, with strength and clarity. I wrote about my journey, my dreams, my achievements, and the betrayal that had tested my soul. By the time I finished, my eyes were wet, but my heart was light. I sent the draft to Elijah, then picked up my phone. I need to talk to you before the court date, I texted Nolan. I want to give you one last chance to do the right thing. His reply came instantly, arrogant and dismissive. There's nothing left to discuss. I've done what I needed to do. Harper and I are moving on. And you're just a footnote in my life. I sighed, but I wasn't angry. I wasn't broken. I was just sad that he couldn't see the truth. Fine, Nolan. Then let the court decide. And when the world gets to see your true face, I hope you're ready for the consequences. The next call to action echoed in my mind. Every word, every decision, every move was leading me closer to justice. I would stand tall, speak my truth, and claim what was rightfully mine. If you're watching this story, remember to subscribe, comment, and like this video. Your support means the world, and together, we can break the silence and stand in our power. The day before the court hearing, I sat in my living room, surrounded by stacks of documents, financial statements, and witness statements. Elijah had meticulously prepared every detail, but the real weight of the moment hadn't hit me until now. Soon I would stand before a judge, tell my story, and confront Nolan and Harper face to face. The mere thought sent chills down my spine, but I refused to let fear overshadow my resolve. Tamara arrived with a care package, coffee, snacks, and a bouquet of sunflowers, my favorite. "You're not alone, Leora," she said, hugging me tightly. "No matter what happens in that room, I'll be there." I smiled, grateful for her unwavering support. "I know. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm ready to face them. I'm ready to stand up for myself." She nodded, her eyes filled with pride. "You've come so far, Leora. No matter what that courtroom throws at you, remember all the strength you've built. You're not the same woman who walked into that ballroom numb and heartbroken. You're a warrior now." The next morning I dressed carefully. Simple black pants, a crisp white blouse, and my hair styled in a high puff, just the way Grandma Rose liked it. I approached the courthouse with Tamara by my side, our footsteps echoing in the quiet morning air. The press had already gathered at the entrance, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and walked forward, my head held high. Inside the courtroom, the air was thick with tension. Nolan and Harper sat together, Harper's eyes darting around the room, searching for social media opportunities, I assumed. I looked away, choosing not to give them the satisfaction of my attention. Elijah greeted me with a reassuring nod, and Tamara took her seat beside me. The proceedings began, and the judge's voice cut through the silence. "Does the plaintiff have any objections to the defendant's request for temporary spousal support?" Elijah stood, his voice firm and confident. "Your Honor, the plaintiff objects. The defendant's financial disclosures show a clear pattern of dissipation of marital assets and fraudulent transfers. We request that the court deny the defendant's request and order them to repay the marital funds they have stolen." The judge glanced at the stack of documents Elijah presented, then turned to the defense. "Objections." Harper's lawyer, a slick man in a tailored suit, rose with a smug expression. "Your Honor, these claims are unfounded. The defendants request only what is fair, given the hardships they've endured. My client, Harper, is simply seeking a fair life after her years of dedication to Mr. Patterson's career." Nolan watched silently, a glimmer of arrogance in his eyes. I kept my gaze fixed forward, refusing to let their performances shake me. The judge considered the arguments, then turned his attention to me. "Mrs. Patterson, would you like to speak on your own behalf?" Every eye in the courtroom was on me as I stood. "Your Honor, what I endured was not simply hardship. It was betrayal. Nolan spent years building a secret life, draining our accounts and using our marital funds to support another woman, all while pretending I was the one holding him back. I worked tirelessly to build something for myself, not because I lacked ambition, but because I valued honesty, integrity, and hard work. I refused to live a lie, and I refused to be silenced." The gallery murmured, and I could see Nolan's face fall. Harper glared, but her eyes held a flicker of fear. I continued, "I am not here to punish. I am here for justice. I am here to reclaim what is mine, and to hold my husband and his mistress accountable for their actions. I ask this court to see the truth, to see the trail of deceit, and to ensure that justice is served." The judge nodded solemnly. "Thank you, Mrs. Patterson. We'll take a recess and return with our decision." As we walked out, Tamara whispered, "You were incredible. They're already shaken." I smiled, but I wasn't celebrating yet. "It's not over." We still have a long road ahead. Later that day, the court issued its ruling. Nolan's request for spousal support was denied, and the judge ordered a full audit of all marital assets, with the possibility of him being ordered to repay the funds he'd misappropriated. Harper's reaction was immediate. She stood up, her face flushed, her voice trembling. "This is ridiculous," she shouted. "I didn't ask for any of this. Nolan is the one who promised me a better life." The gavel struck down, and the court cleared the room. Outside, the press swarmed. Cameras pointed at Nolan and Harper as they tried to push their way through the crowd. I watched them both, their bravado crumbling in the face of the judge's verdict. The world was seeing their true colors, exposed for all to see. Elijah placed a hand on my shoulder. "You did well, Leora. This is just the beginning. The next phase is asset recovery. We'll need your patience, but we'll make sure you get what's rightfully yours." Tamara linked her arm with mine. "And you'll have me every step of the way. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like this story. Your support gives me strength, and together we can keep standing tall." That night I sat alone, reflecting on the day's events. The courtroom victory was just one battle, but it marked a turning point. I wasn't just fighting for what I owned. I was fighting for my dignity, my self-worth, and the right to be seen as strong and capable. I wasn't a victim. I was Leora Sterling, and I was ready for whatever came next. The weeks after the court hearing flew by, each day bringing a new twist, a new revelation, and another crack in the facade Nolan and Harper had built. The audit of their assets unearthed every secret, every lie, every act of betrayal. News outlets picked up the story, painting Nolan as a man who squandered his fortune on a mistress while his wife quietly built a legacy. Harper's social media empire, once trending, now groaned under the weight of scandal and broken promises. I watched it all unfold, knowing that the true battle was still ahead, the final showdown. Elijah called me late one evening, urgency in his voice. "Leora, I've received a letter from Nolan's lawyer. He's demanding a private settlement, and he's willing to surrender some of the assets he took from you. But there's a catch. He wants to see you face to face to negotiate the terms." I sat in silence, the phone heavy in my hand. The last time I'd seen Nolan, he was standing in a ballroom, humiliating me in front of hundreds. I hadn't planned on seeing him again. Not like this, not in private, not after all that had happened. But something inside me stirred. I wanted to look him in the eye and see if he was truly sorry, if he understood the pain he'd caused, or if he was still just a man chasing his own ego. "I'll do it," I said. "But I want you there, Elijah. I won't face him alone." The meeting was set for the next day at a quiet office downtown. The air was thick with tension as I walked in, Tamara at my side, and Nolan rose from a chair across the table. Harper sat beside him, her face carefully composed but her eyes flickering with uncertainty. I refused to look at her, keeping my gaze fixed on Nolan. "This can go one of two ways," I said, my voice steady. "We can settle this quietly, or we can drag it out in court, where every detail, every lie, every betrayal will be laid bare. The court will decide who gets what, and the world will see your true face. I don't want to do that, but I will if I have to." Nolan's composure cracked. "Leora, I know I made mistakes. I was selfish, I was blind. I didn't see everything you built, everything you sacrificed. I thought I was doing what was right for me, but I hurt you deeply. I'm sorry." I studied his face, searching for sincerity. Sorry isn't enough. You don't just say sorry and expect everything to go back to normal. I want answers. I want to know why you did it. Why did you think you could just throw me away and move on with her? He looked at Harper, then back at me. I thought I deserved more. I thought I was trapped in a life that didn't match my ambitions. Harper, she made me feel powerful, successful, important. I lost sight of what truly mattered. Harper finally spoke, her voice trembling. I didn't know about the money, Leora. I didn't know he was talking to you. I thought he was just a man with a good job, a good life. I thought I was finally getting the happiness I deserved. I shook my head. You both took what wasn't yours. You both thought you could walk away clean, but the truth always finds a way out. If I agreed to the settlement, it's not for you. It's for me. It's my money, my property, my life. I'm not doing this to make you happy or to absolve you of your guilt. I'm doing this so I can move on. So I can finally close this chapter and start building a new life. Silence lingered in the room, heavy with unspoken truths. Nolan finally nodded. I understand. I'll sign the papers today. I'll give back what I took. I don't want to drag this out anymore. I just want it to be over. You're not the only one, I said softly. I want it to be over too. But I need to know you'll never hurt anyone like this again. Never lie, never cheat. Never betray anyone's trust for your own gain. I promise, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Harper stared at me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I'm sorry too, Leora. I don't know what I was thinking. I just wanted to be loved, to be seen. That's not love, I said. Real love builds people up. It doesn't tear them down. It doesn't leave behind a trail of broken hearts and stolen lives. With the settlement papers signed, the meeting ended. Nolan and Harper left, their future uncertain. But I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The pain was still there, the memories intact, but I had taken back my power, my dignity, and my future. I was Leora Sterling, and I was ready to start again. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about money or legal battles. It was about my journey, my growth, my refusal to be defined by anyone else's choices. I had fought for my truth, my justice, and my life. Now I needed to fight for my peace. The morning after the settlement, I stood at the window of my apartment, watching the sun rise over the city. The air was crisp, the streets quiet, and for the first time in months my heart felt light. I'd reclaimed what was mine, but more than that, I'd reclaimed myself. The pain was still there, the scars of betrayal etched into my soul, but I had learned to carry them without letting them define me. I was Leora Sterling, and I was ready to start a new chapter. Tamara arrived, her arms filled with notes and a stack of sketches for my new business idea. A community center inspired by my journey, a place where women could find hope, support, and empowerment. I thought you might want to make this official, she said, handing me a notebook filled with ideas. I smiled, flipping through the pages. This is perfect. I want every woman who walks through those doors to know she's not alone, that she's strong, and that she's worth more than anyone else's lies. And I'll be right there beside you, she promised. We spent the day planning, dreaming, and building. The laughter was easy, the conversation effortless, and for the first time I felt truly at peace. The world still had challenges, there would always be heartbreak and betrayal, but I had learned to face them with courage and resilience. That night, I recorded one last video for my social media. The camera was set up, my makeup perfect, my dress crisp and simple. I looked directly into the lens, my voice steady and strong. This has been my journey, and I want to thank every single one of you for standing by me, for believing in me, and for supporting me every step of the way. You've given me the strength to rise, to fight, and to rebuild. If you've ever felt broken, if you've ever felt like giving up, know this: you are not alone. You are strong. You are capable. And you are worth every dream, every victory, every moment of joy. The comments poured in, women sharing their own stories, their own struggles, their own triumphs. I read them all, my heart full with gratitude. I wasn't just telling my story. I was giving others hope. In the weeks that followed, my new community center opened its doors. The first day was filled with laughter, tears, and the promise of new beginnings. I watched from the back, my hands clasped, my heart overflowing with pride. This was my legacy, my way of giving back, my way of healing. As the sun set on the opening day, I stood outside the center, the sound of conversation filling the air. Nolan called me, his voice hesitant. "Leora, I just wanted to thank you for not destroying me, for giving me a second chance." I smiled, but I didn't turn to face him. "Nolan, everyone deserves a second chance, but you have to earn it. Don't waste it." Harper never reached out again, but I heard she'd left the city, started fresh, and found her own journey. I hoped she'd found peace, but I knew my duty was to myself, to the women who'd fought alongside me, to the dream I was building. As I walked away, I stopped to look at the rising moon, the city lights glittering around me. The road ahead was unknown, but I was no longer afraid. I had found my strength, my voice, my power. I was Leora Sterling, and I was ready to shine. If you enjoyed this story, hit like, comment, and subscribe. Share your own journey, and let's stand together every step of the way. Because no matter how dark the night, there's always a dawn waiting on the other side.